Hello, I'm WP Swazo. My topic today is the money multiplier. What we have here across the top of the board is a relationship. What it says is that if money is deposited into Bank A, that deposit in Bank A will have a cumulative impact on the banking system. So, whatever money that's deposited in Bank A, that first deposit in Bank A, times the money multiplier will have a cumulative effect on all the monies in the banking system. Also, we could take that same deposit A, multiply it by 1 minus RR, and to abide by PEMDAS. Let's put it in parentheses. So, what does this express? This is how much money a bank can turn around and lend from each deposit. So it's 1 minus the reserve ratio. RR is the reserve ratio. What the reserve ratio is how much of each deposit a bank must keep in vault cash. So, deposit A times 1 minus RR is what a bank is able to turn around and lend out. Okay, so here is the first example. Let's say we have $2,550 deposited into Bank A. And this initial deposit in Bank A causes the money in the banking system to increase by $25,500. So if we're given these two bits of information, then we know the multiple that binds them is 10. That $2,550 times 10 equals 25,500. If the multiplier is 10, then we know the reserve ratio must be 0.10. The reserve ratio must be 0.10. So if we plug that in, we're going to have 1 minus 0.10, which is another way of saying 0.90. So if we have that 25,500 multiplied by 90%, that's going to give us 2295. So, what happens if we deposit $2,550 in a banking system that is required to keep 10% of the deposits as vault cash? They could quickly turn around and lend out $2,295 to a borrower who could put that money in his account in Bank B. And when all is said and done, the money in the banking system will increase by $25,500. Okay, let's start back over here. Let's say we have $25,092. So this is what a borrower is putting into Bank B, based on an initial deposit to Bank A of $32.40. So how can we solve this? Well, if we divide 2592 by 3240, we will see that 2592 is 80% of 3240. If it's 82%, if it's 80%, then 20% is being held back by the reserve ratio. So 2592 divided by 3240, that's 80%. This whole expression equals 80%. We must be holding back 20%. So if we look over here, if we find the inverse of 20%, that equals 5. So if we take this 3240 and we multiply it by 5, we get $16,200. So all the monies in the banking system increases by 16,200. Okay, while we're here, how about 11,520? 11,520 is the increase of monies in the banking system based on a multiplier of 4. If we have a multiplier of 4, a money multiplier of 4, then we know the reserve ratio is 0.25. So let us run over here and plug that in. So banks are allowed to lend out 75% of any deposit. So this here is going to work out to be 2880. 1/4 of 11,520 is 2880. If we plug this in, 2880 times 0.5 will give us 2160. Good. How about say if we're given 3,700 in the middle, and that is multiplied by 20. So we know that $74,000 is how much the banking system's deposits will be enlarged by. If this is 20, if the money multiplier is 20, the reserve ratio is a nickel, or 5%. So 95% is allowed to be passed through. So 3,700, 10% of that would be 370, and half of 10% with being held back would leave us with this. So 3,515 is 95% of 3,700. Okay, what about 9,000? Let's say we have an initial deposit of 9,000 and we are allowed to lend out 87.5%. So that means 12.5% is the reserve ratio. Okay. Well, if that's 9,000, we're going to have 78,075 here. That passes through. So 87.5% of 9,000 is 7,875. We plug in this 9,000 again. So if that's an eighth, then the multiplier is 8. If 12.5% is an eighth, and the multiplier is an eighth. Okay. And as you know, 8 times 9 is 72. So 72,000 is the amount of money that the banking system increases by. Finally, let's say we'll have 30% held, which gives us 1680. So what are we doing? This whole expression equals 70%. If we divide 70% into 1680, that will give us our 2,400. 2,400, 2,400. Okay. 30%. 1 over 0.30 equals 3.333 infinity, right? Okay. And that works out to be $8,000. So 3.33 repeating times 2,400 works out to be $8,000. So this is the money multiplier, and this is how a initial deposit could change the amount of monies that are available in a banking system. That is described as a cumulative effect. We have a money multiplier, which is the inverse of the reserve ratio. If we subtract the reserve ratio from 1, that shows us how much money can initially be lent out from an initial deposit in Bank A to Bank B. Hopefully this is clarified. Any questions you might have on this topic, and thank you for watching.